everyone, and welcome to the Evolve with Emily Show YouTube channel. The best way to support the show on this YouTube channel is to subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment, and or share it with a friend. I hope that you guys enjoy this episode, and whichever way you choose to support the show, I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much. I hope that today's message and episode brings some bit of positive change to your life. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Evolve with Emily Show. I am your host, Emily Hayden, and a few years back, I did a series called Inspired by You, where I interviewed you, the listener, and we talked all about your personal growth journey. Well, this year, I am doing a series that is very similar, where I interview some EvolveX graduates of people that have gone through my EvolveX journey and have literally evolved in their lives. This is the second episode that I'm doing of that series, and today's guest is Beckie Flowers. She is a homeschooling mom of 3, a wife, and an owner of Relentlessly Fit, her personal training and nutrition coaching business. She's also a podcast host, so look her up on podcast. Her link will be down below. And she really is just pushing herself to all the next levels of life in every single area of life. And she comes from the Midwest. So we have a really great conversation about things like taking ownership, taking personal responsibility, owning your mess in order to get out of patterns, habits, limiting beliefs, and things that you know are holding you back from being your best self. So I know that everybody will gain massive value from today's podcast. So get a pen, get a pencil, get ready to take some notes, because she really does share some incredible actionable tools and tips that you can start to implement right now today as you listen to the podcast in order to start to evolve in your life. Now, just a little announcement before we get into today's conversation. We are accepting applications for the next round of EvolveX. We have a limited number of clientele, and we are only accepting applications every 90 days or so, sometimes every 90 to 130 days or so. So if you've ever thought about being a part of EvolveX, if you want to go on your own individual journey of evolving, we invite you to fill out an application. And if we feel that you're an ideal fit for this round, we will reach out to you, hop on the phone with you, and just kind of discuss what that would look like. So definitely get your applications in if you are interested. Without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into today's conversation. Beckie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really stoked that you chose to spend some time with me. I know, you have nothing going on at all between your children and homeschooling and podcasting and coaching and launching of the challenge of First Form. You have nothing going on. So I appreciate you squeezing me in.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
I always have time for you.
Oh, thank you. Well, okay, so I want to get into, take me back to the beginning when you first decided to go on your own personal journey of evolving, of personal growth and development. What pushed you to sign up to take along this journey for yourself?
Yeah. So I kind of always been interested in personal development from the beginning, like with therapy and all of that. Kind of really got into personal growth after I had my third daughter almost 4 years ago now, and just kind of developing as a person. But what brought me to EvolveX was I just recently got married in September, and I kind of hit an all-time low where I was like, I don't even know what my purpose is, why I'm here. I come from a really small town, so I was like, I just want to be around people that kind of get me, because I've always been like the weirdo. I've always been the quiet one, always been like the outsider. And I'm like, I just want to find a group of people that actually understand this kind of evolving journey, and like, let's get better. Let's take ownership for things. Even though we're still shitty people sometimes, like, let's take ownership. So that's what actually brought me to EvolveX.
That's so cool. And I think, what you experienced, a lot of people go through where they want to grow, they want to develop in their lives, but what's currently around them, their current environment, maybe their current friend groups, they don't really have people that have that same desire to grow and to change. And like you said, just to own and take responsibility for their own stuff. And I think, when you get yourself surrounded around a bunch of other people that are just courageously owning their stuff, right? And showing up and owning up to the hard week that they had, the momentary failure that they had, it kind of like gives you more free space and more of a safe space to open up and be like, hey, me too.
and let's get ourselves back up and let's brush off the dirt and let's go and try again. So I think that's really, really cool that you sought out that community, because a lot of people will stay stuck just saying, I don't have people that go after growth. I don't have people that are dedicated to fitness, that don't want to drink 24/7. And what I see you did is you went and took action, and you were like, okay, I'm going to go find the people that are dedicated to their fitness and, you know, to bettering themselves overall. So I got to commend you on that, because you're somebody who right from the get-go took action to really create that change that you wanted in your life. I know at the very beginning, you shared with us that if you could achieve one thing, that it would be your mindset improving. And you kind of shared how you were aware to the fact that you were holding yourself back, which I think shows a really great level of self-awareness. It shows that you've been on your personal journey, journey for a little while now. So how did you come to that realization that like, hey, I'm the one holding myself back and I need to improve this mindset if I want to get to where I'm going in life? You know, what brought upon that realization and caused you to like take massive action here?
Yeah. So it goes back to my wedding. Everyone wants to think back of their wedding day, and it's like this amazing day. And my husband will kill me for saying this, but I do not think that.
No way.
It was kind of, yeah, it was a hot mess. It really was. And you know what? 90% of it was me. I have my best friend. She actually flew up from Texas for the wedding. She's like, that wasn't you. And I'm like, I know. Like,
did you go into bridezilla mode?
You know what? I kind of probably did a little bit, but I was so nervous that it was just like, and then I projected that on everyone, and it just turned into an awful night. Things were said that shouldn't have been said to me, and it kind of like just brought me to the like ground zero. So that's when I was like, you know what? I need to fix this. Like, there is something that's going on here. And a big part of that was that I've always been the quiet one. So I've always held myself back from moving forward, because I'm like, well, I'm shy, I'm introverted. I'm not going to go out for that new thing because I'd have to put myself out there and be around people that I don't know. And if my husband can't come with me or a friend can't come with me, that's like my safety net. So that was kind of what brought me to where I ended up. Like that was my whole mindset behind it, because I needed to push myself out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. Wow. It sounds to me like you were just at that tipping point of like, I'm ready to do whatever is required to create change, because now I'm just kind of fed up with it, you know? And I think sometimes we have to get to that moment of being fed up with either the way that our life is or the way that, you know, we are experiencing and responding, reacting to life, to be like, okay, I need a different way. I got to find a different way, because this is not producing the life experience that I wish to have. It's not producing the relationships that I wish to have. So again, just really strong of you to be like, okay, this doesn't work. Let me go find what does. So you gave a mantra for the 90 days, and I want to share the mantra if that's okay with you. And
okay, I don't remember.
Yeah, it was really powerful. And that's why I want to say it out loud, because I feel like people that are listening, maybe they could take upon your mantra for the next, say, 30 days, right? Or just whatever, you know, this is something that I think everybody, if they could really adopt this mindset, they could go full force towards their goals. So going full force into this 90-day, you know, program, your mantra was, I am relentless in becoming a better me every day. I will remember how I do one thing is how I do everything. So I will do everything to the best of my ability. Explain a little bit about just your mindset with that and how you brought that into like your everyday action.
Yeah. So that's very me. I didn't remember what I wrote down, but that sounds like me. So relentless is kind of my word, because I have been through a lot in life, and it's just like, okay, I need to show up relentlessly. That's the only way that I'm going to get what I want. And then how you do one thing is how you do everything. That's something that I heard from Andy Frisella years ago, and it's just stuck with me. So I kind of had that mindset, and I still have that mindset every day where, okay, I'm showing up and I homeschool my kids and it's a shit show. And I need to, how I do one thing is how I do everything. So if I'm yelling at them, I can't then jump on here and act like everything's wonderful when it's not. So kind of just having that self-check throughout the day really helped me. That's kind of what I did. And that was a good thing with like the journal prompts that you guys give. that helped me remember what I was showing up for and like how I was going to show up.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's why we have some of those journal prompts in there. And we have a system where every week you guys check, okay, what did I say I was going to do versus what did I actually do? How did it go? And do I need to readjust? And the purpose for these journal prompts and how often they are is to help you guys build a habit of self-awareness. So like you said, you can take that realistic look at yourself and say, okay, how am I doing? Like realistically, let's look at my goals, my actions, and how are they matching up and lining up? So do you feel like your self-awareness increased by doing some of these practices?
Oh, 1000%. Yeah. And there are so many things that I would see that I'm like, I don't even want to see that, but it would kind of bring it out.
That is so good and so honest, because we all have those parts, right? We all have those parts where if we're really honest with ourselves, we'll say, I don't really like that part about me, and the beauty of that is once you're aware to it, now you have the opportunity to say, you know what, I don't like it, but let's go ahead and change it into something that I do like and into something that I am proud of, and it's hard. This whole process of evolving, it's a really difficult thing because you're having to face some ugly truths, right? It's not always like pretty truths about like, where do I want to be in life? A lot of it's like, where have I been and where am I at? And how am I further perpetuating that into my future? And how can I change that so I can live in a different way and live with different patterns? So I know that you are a very incredibly hardworking person, like for your business to be named, Relentless, for you to really adopt that mindset. You are definitely that person that's like type A, working hard all the time. And so I know that you have struggled in the past with allowing yourself time to have rest and time to take a break. I remember it was in week 2, actually, that you had already shared that you finally gave yourself a break. And you were, it's because you were in this point of like pushing so hard mentally and physically, you felt that you were reaching burnout. So can you explain how important rest is and what would you suggest to those that are experiencing burnout?
Yeah. So by the way, I love that you call me type A because I think I'm type Z. I'm a hot mess. Oh yeah. I'm like the farthest thing from type A.
Oh, no way.
I do. Yes. But okay, so rest, it's such a hard thing because we especially like high achievers, or I don't even know if I'm a high achiever, but like
you are
just showing up, we want to show up.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. You want to move forward, and you feel like if you take a day off, you're just setting yourself backwards. So I've found that I needed to give myself grace. Even I remember what you're talking about with week 2, because it got to the point I had jumped into 75 hard right after my wedding. So I'm like, I need to do something right now. And I was so burnt out from just the wedding process, the emotional drain, that it got to the point that I told Hannah, my coach, like, I can't do this anymore. I feel like a failure, but I can't do this anymore. And that was the best thing I did for myself. Wow. I allowed myself to really just focus more on what I was working towards instead of just like the rat race of, okay, let's go. So I would say if you struggle with rest, just do it. You got to just bite the bullet and do it. It sucks. It's going to suck. You're going to feel like you're just wasting time, but you're not. You're actually giving yourself more time.
Yeah. And I love what you said there, how you expressed that you actually felt like a failure in choosing to rest, right? Because you were going after this goal. But I think what you did was, it was really self-aware. You realized that your daily actions of still being on 75 hard and doing everything that you were doing didn't match up with where you were at for that season. And so I think it's really great that you were able to recognize that and pull back, even though it didn't feel good, and give yourself what you needed, because it was pretty clear from, you showing up in your check-ins that you just started progressively doing better, and you were really improving simply from giving yourself grace and giving yourself rest, which I'm sure, being a mom and homeschooling and all of that, like that adds even more layers of always wanting to, be a high performer and be on top of everything and pushing and going for the next goal, right? So I think it's really great that you were able to experience that. Nutritionally, you shared something that I thought was really interesting. So I want to see if you can explain it a little bit, but you had shared that the thought, does this bring me value? So this question, does this bring me value? that you thought that really helped your relationship with food. So can you explain the statement, the question, and then explain how that impacted your relationship with food?
Yeah. So that actually came from Hannah. That is not mine. And that came from her because I was really struggling with, and I wouldn't say binge eating, but I would just, a little bit of binge eating probably, because I would hide it. I would hide it from my husband and my kids, and I would just be eating this junk. And it's like, I know that I have macros, so I can fit things into it, but I would be going above and beyond that. And there was a lot of guilt there because of that. So I expressed that to her a little bit. And then she gave me that phrase, does this bring you value? So the way that she explained it was, does this bring you value to your health? Well, if it's a chocolate chip cookie, it's not. But is that what you need right now so that you're not binge eating 3 chocolate chip cookies later? Do you eat the chocolate chip cookie, track it in your macros, and then move on? Or do you say that you can't have it and then you're hiding in the closet eating 3 later while your kids are in bed? So that's kind of where that came from. And that helped me a lot because it gave me that grace that, okay, you can have a cookie. You can own up to the fact that, yeah, you did have a cookie and move forward.
I think that's probably something that a lot of moms deal with is, having those periods of like snacking. Like for me, I always kind of joked and been like, thank God I don't have human children because I don't know if I could deal with all the snacks in the house. Snacks in the house are a real thing. Even when I was a nanny and I was on prep, I was like, man, I got to stay away from this pantry. It is.
Oh, I know.
It is hard. So, okay, in about week 4, you made a breakthrough that you've kind of addressed a few times in the podcast already about going from being labeled the quiet one. Can you explain what the quiet one refers to and what that breakthrough was that was so monumental for you?
Yeah. So the quiet one was my identity from when I remember being 2 and being told that I was too quiet and sensitive. Like that is one of my first memories. And this sounds so sappy, like I hate talking about it, but from that point on, I was always just the one that was kind of the outsider. I would go into groups and just like get a pit in my stomach because I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to talk to these people. So that had been my identity for 34 years. And that's who I was. That's what I told myself I was. I couldn't do in-person training because I'm too awkward. I don't want to train new people. So having that breakthrough that I had during this program, it just gave me one permission that, you know what, I am freaking quiet and I show up for people the way that someone who is talking your ear off and doesn't know you and will just come in and swoop in can't. They have their purpose. I have my purpose. And it was kind of just that realization of, damn, like I have a purpose as an introvert, as this quote unquote awkward one. I'm not awkward. I'm just me. So I kind of got the permission to own the hell out of that and just show up as me.
Wow, that's incredible. And it, kind of reminds me of the concept, the idea that everybody in life has a different instrument to play, similar to instruments in the symphony. And the flute is not better than the drums, is not better than the violin. They're all different and their sounds are all needed in order for the beautiful sound to come out. And I feel like that's what you really were able to kind of click with and understand and express in your own way. So I think it's really beautiful that you were able to own who you are, own your own sound, so to speak, and allow that to play. How has that impacted your business, your training, things like that? How has that impacted how you live?
Yeah. Well, I will say that didn't just show up, and it's not like that, like I had to put in the work. So the way that I did that was I had to show up to different gyms in my area and go in. And that sounds so small. But I remember the first week that I did it, I was driving down the road to this gym and I'm like, I can just turn around and go to my gym that's 20 minutes away. Like I can just do that. But I forced myself to go in, train at a new gym. I don't know where everything is. I don't know who anyone is. And doing that over and over again was what gave me that confidence. So it wasn't just a epiphany of, okay, I'm okay now. It was kind of just putting in the work. So with my business, that it's changed everything, because I'm able to show up as myself. And I pushed myself out of my comfort zone. So with training, I'm okay if someone wants me to go to their gym and talk to their people and see if I can train them there. Like, it's okay now. And, or I have a gym in my garage, so I can have people come over, or, just, I'm more comfortable talking to strangers and getting them what they need.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned is really important, how it wasn't just an epiphany. It was an epiphany that then took consistent action. And it sounds to me like that consistent action is what created that confidence in yourself. So I hope everyone listening, as they get their own epiphanies, they will commit to consistent action. And like you said, it's not like you're like, okay, cool, I'm just going to do this, and it was easy and comfortable. It felt really uncomfortable. You wanted to quit, and yet you did it anyways. And what I hear is that it produced more freedom in your life. And I just smile listening to hear how you're like, now I can take clients no matter where they're at, or host them at my place. It makes me so happy to hear that, because freedom is such a huge core value of mine. And I want people to have freedom in their mind, freedom in their heart, freedom in their work practices, whatever it is, just that freedom to really live life fully. And it sounds like you're doing that more and more. And so it's just really awesome. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, of course. I will add one more thing. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
If you are working on gaining confidence like I had to, what you really have to do is make little promises to yourself. Like mine was, go to a new gym every week. And you need to do that over and over again, like show up for those promises that you make. So it's just my little tip.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think that's the number one thing that you can do to build confidence, because what you're doing is you're building that self-trust of, yes, when I say I'm going to do something, I actually follow through with it. And then you're building that consistent pattern of, I don't just do it once. It's not a one-off thing. When I feel the courage, I'm doing it even when I don't feel courage, even when it doesn't feel comfortable, even when everything in me wants to turn around. And those are the moments and the things that bring confidence. And, right now it's confidence in this one area of life, but you're really building this confidence, this self-trust that's going to really show itself up in so many different areas of your life. So I love that tip, and I think it's so helpful. Okay, so part of the program is about some daily requirements, and one of the things that we really promote is at least a period of sobriety, right? So the challenge is sobriety, but we encourage at least a period of sobriety. And the whole goal with this is to help people just be more intentional with their alcohol usage, because I've really recognized and realized that oftentimes people's alcohol usage is either very unintentional, it's either holding them back from a lot in life, or it's producing this like fogginess or this cloud over them so they can't reach clarity. So a main reason for including sobriety at all in the program is to help people be more clear than they've ever been, more intentional than they've ever been. So I know this was possibly overwhelming to think about when you first signed up. Can you talk about just your, practicing periods of sobriety, or just talk about this topic in general in relation to your experience and maybe your advice for others?
Yeah. I'm laughing because that was the biggest problem that I had some weeks. So I live in just a little backstory. I live in a really small Midwest town, and it's normal for you to go out and you're going to get beers with dinner. You're going to get a drink. You're going to go out on the weekends or have wine at home. So this was a struggle for me at first. At first I thought it was going to be fine because I was doing 75 hard. You can't drink during 75 hard. And then when I gave myself grace, I was like, well, here we go. So I kind of didn't stick with that. But I will say, I kind of being real with my coach and just telling her that I was having that struggle. I think she gave me, it was a piece of advice where it was like, give yourself permission to have one drink if you want it. Like, is this a special enough occasion for me to have a drink? And just having that in the back of my mind when we go out, like, no, we see the same people every weekend. It's not that big of deal. So towards the end of the program, I was able to stick with that sobriety. And I'm telling you right now, I haven't had a drink since New Year's. So it's just, yeah.
So that's really cool because, I think what it does is it just helps you, like you mentioned, to be more intentional about it, and also to recognize, where and when is the appropriate time for you, right? Because I think some people can just make it a pattern of living, right? They're like, drink with dinner and drink with, on the weekend. And it's just a pattern. It's not this like conscious, oh, I want to enjoy this with people, right? So I think what you did is take it from that unconscious pattern of like, this is just what I do, to creating a new intentional habit of, if I do it, it's with a purpose, it's with intention, and it's because I want to enjoy a drink with family or friends or whatever. Is that something that you feel like is a more of your lifestyle pattern and habit now?
Yes, it is. It really has become that, and it kind of makes me the weirdo again. And
yeah,
it's like, it's okay.
Well, welcome to the club. There's a lot of us here.
Well, good.
Yeah. So, okay, what about the daily journaling? So there's a daily journaling requirement. Can you talk me through what consistent journaling did for you?
Yeah. So it kind of, it made me really think about gratitude, because that's part of it. Every single day you have to write something, I think 3 things that you're grateful for. It kind of got me in a good space there. And then having to go into then like how I'm going to show up for that day goes back to that mantra of, okay, just getting my mind right of how am I going to show up for my kids, for my family and my friends. So just repetitively over and over again, that was a big game changer for me, just because I had to physically think about how I'm going to show up.
Yeah.
So,
and it's crazy how when you put pen to paper, now you are having to say, okay, this is how I'm showing up for the day, versus just going throughout your day, waking up, pressing the alarm, doing all of your stuff. You're taking a moment to say, this is what I intend to do. That way, if you say like, I intend to be a space of, love for people, and you're out and somebody does something that could potentially upset you, you might choose differently, because you're like, you know what? I wrote down that I would be a space of love. And so right now I'm going to give them grace. They don't deserve it, but grace is undeserving, right? And maybe sometimes you go throughout your day and you didn't give grace. You can look back on that morning to say, I said I would be a space of love, and I was not that during the traffic or whatever, and so then it's not a place of judgment, but it's just that self-awareness again of, okay, this is a struggle area for me. What can I do to improve? Right. So I think it's definitely a really powerful tool that can be used in a lot of ways. What about for people that struggle to really practice gratitude? Maybe they feel like they're just writing the same things down every day. Do you have any experience with helping people really get into that mind of gratitude?
Yeah, I actually did a podcast about this, just because gratitude had such a impact on me throughout this journey. I think it's really easy for us to just get into almost a habit of gratitude. Like we wake up and we say the same thing every single day. So I think if you struggle with that, because that's what I struggle with. So if you struggle with that, you kind of have to be a little bit more intentional when you are writing that down. So if you catch yourself writing the same thing every day, stop yourself and think about what else you could be grateful for. And giving yourself permission to be grateful for the small things. Sometimes I feel like we think that we have to like dive into these deep, meaningful things. And really a cup of coffee can mean everything to someone. So have gratitude for
It
that.
does for me.
No. Oh, me too.
Yeah, coffee is just, it is wonderful. I did a period of time where I cut out coffee just because I felt like I kind of do these random things where it's like a fast, so to speak, right? Where I'll like fast myself from something if I feel like I'm being either dependent on it or utilizing it too much, or I just kind of want to like break from something. So I did no coffee for a while, and I was like, oh, I could just live life without coffee, right? Because I like broke the habit. And then I had it once and I was like, no, this is just magical in the morning. Even if it's decaf, I want a cup of hot coffee, a little bit of cream in there. It's definitely my favorite too. So, okay, on week 10, we went into spirituality. And in that, I seek to really hold a safe space for everybody, no matter where they are on the spectrum or on the step of their spiritual journey. So, can you share a little bit about maybe what that week brought up for you personally? And if you're somebody of faith, like kind of what those thoughts were and what kind of actions were attached to the things that you learned or that were brought up for you?
Yeah. This was the hardest week for me, and it probably is for a lot of people. But I am a believer, and it brought up a lot of inner struggle because I was a single mom at one point. So we know if you grew up in the church, you know, no sex before marriage and all of that. I had that guilt, and I still was holding on to some of that. And I had my son at 21. So from that point on, I'm 34 now. I kind of have always had that guilt, and it still is something that I'm kind of wrestling with a little bit. So it brought that up for me just a little bit. But I will say, you in the program, you had something where it was just for believers that you did. And it was so nice to hear, because you kind of talked about how take things with a grain of salt, especially in the personal development world. And that's kind of what I've always struggled with too. I'll read things and I'm like, no, that just doesn't align with what I believe. And it's hard for me to keep consuming them. So just hearing that, one, someone else notices that too. And two, to just like take things with a grain of salt. You don't have to believe everything that they're saying, but take the little pieces that you can apply to your own life. It was just so nice to hear. And I don't know, I feel like in that you were talking about the Bible and how it really, like, it goes back into a lot of these things that we're working for personal development. A lot of that can be found in the Bible. So
yeah, it's
just that reminder.
Yeah, that's so good. And it's true. It's crazy how, if you look at like the principles of what a lot of the personal development world teaches, a lot of it can be found in the Bible. It's just, it takes a little bit of looking, and I think what you have experienced is very normal. And I think people experience it in their own way, just this like guilt of what preset religions and structures and organizations have created you to think that God is. And so I hope that in this whole journey, you've really just looked for finding more about who God is and his character, because he is the one that holds grace. He is grace. He is mercy. He is love. He's not judgment and guilt and condemnation, right? He encourages us and loves us back into alignment with him. So if we've ever stepped out of alignment, he is like there and open and like, I got you. I love you. I'm here. Let's go. Like, that's all it is, yeah, you went left. Let's go right, So
Exactly.
Yeah. So I love that you were able to, take this week head on, because this is an uncomfortable topic for a lot of people, just based on their own experience, their own preconceived ideas. A lot of people, they say that they get to this section and they have like a preconceived idea of what the audio mentorship is going to be like. And they think it's going to be like things they have previously experienced in the religious or church world or spiritual world or whatever. And really, it's just a loving space to say, hey, let's talk openly about this. And regardless of where you're at in your journey, let's help you just become aware to what's the current thing that you need to think about, address, and then how can you start practicing, a spiritual life? How can you start practicing principles that are above the, worldly standards, so to speak, right? Let's practice love. Let's practice peace and joy, things that I think most people can get on board with, regardless of what it is that you do believe. So I think that was just, it was a really cool section for me. It was, what's interesting, and I don't know if I've voiced this, it was actually the last thing that I recorded, and I didn't want to record it. So it's funny because when,
oh really?
Yes. Oh yeah, I didn't but I knew that I couldn't put the program out without it. I knew 100% I couldn't do it. But it's funny because when all my clients come up and they're like, I wanted to skip this one, I'm like, yo, me too. I really did, because I'm like, it's, you know, it's hard. And, you know, putting the course content out there, it's like, how do I say this in a way where people are going to feel loved and accepted and know that they are just so accepted and loved for wherever they're at on their journey, and then to just encourage them to seek out whatever their next step is, you know? So I'm with you guys. I know it's like not always the easiest thing to talk about. And for me, I feel the same way. So it's kind of comforting in a way when my clients are like, yeah, I didn't want to do it. I'm like, me either.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Okay, so week 12, I wrote down 2 things from your check-in, and it said consistent AF and confident AF. Talk to me about the consistency and confidence that you built throughout your journey of evolving.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. It's just that's kind of what the whole program did for me. It taught me that in order for me to be confident, I needed to be consistent. So with the daily journaling and the requirements that you guys have, the weekly check-ins, it just helped me build that consistency. So then at the end, I can be like, I am consistent AF and I am confident AF, because that's what I built. That's what you guys helped me build.
That's so freaking cool. And reading that, I just had the biggest smile on my face, because I'm like, yes, she got it. Yeah. So, okay. Thinking about the whole 90-day journey when you first started, you know, I always tell people this is not an easy program. So what piece of advice, being a graduate, somebody that's been through the whole thing, what could you give to somebody that is just starting their journey? Maybe they're in week 1 with us right now, who's kind of looking at it like being a little bit overwhelmed about the whole course, it being 12 weeks, all these audio mentorships, and maybe they just missed a lesson, they're feeling overwhelmed. What would you say to them right now about just getting through the program and the fact that it isn't an easy program?
Yeah, I would say show up. Give yourself grace, give yourself permission that maybe you can't make it to a Zoom, but you are going to watch that recording back. And with your audio mentorships, do those while you do something else. Mm-hmm. You can multitask. You don't have to sit there and be 1000% focused. Mm-hmm. Make it work for your life. But you got to show up. You got to do the work.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. And earlier in the podcast, you mentioned how within showing up, you were actually really honest with your coach about times when you didn't hit the mark, right? When times when you were off target with a goal or something that you were meant to do. So what would you say to those people who they feel shy or they feel like they don't want to tell their coach that they messed up on their macros, that they drank when they said that they weren't going to, or whatever it is? What would you say to them?
I say just own it, because they are both amazing. I personally worked with Hannah, and she would be like, dude, me too. I didn't listen to the audio either. Mm-hmm. So we would hold each other accountable. So it was more, she wasn't judging. Mm-hmm. It was just okay, well, let's figure this out for you and let's move forward. So you got to just own it and be honest. And that's the only way that it's going to go away and get better.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's one of those things that comes down to our core values within EvolveX. The 3 core values are love, service, and community. And so the first one, love, always acting out of love. And love is accepting, but also truthful, right? So we're going to accept and not judge, but also be truthful and hold you accountable and redirect you and give you actions to be successful in the goals that you've given that you want to do. So I think that's really how that is shown, because, you know, I hope that when people go through this journey, whether it's through the mentorship or their calls with their coaches, that they experience a love in a way that they haven't before, because I'm always surprised when people think that they're going to be judged for messing up, when we are all human and we all mess up. And we all miss the target, right? So why would there not be that grace and that acceptance and that, I call it truth and love, right? Like you can be truthful and loving at the same time. And so that's really what people get when they come and they be the most honest, vulnerable, real, raw versions of themselves, because when you present that, that is when you can actually get help. And you're a coach yourself. So, you know, how do you feel when your client comes to you and is like, hey, like I had a rough week, like this is what actually happened?
I'm so grateful, because then it gives me a good insight of what's actually going on, and then we can nip it in the bud. So I appreciate it so much. And I will say I learned so much just for my own personal coaching, how I coach my clients through going through this program and just seeing how you guys show up for your people. So thank you for that, because it has helped a lot.
That's so awesome. And I love hearing that. And I hope that you'll take, you know, just the good things that you've learned and you can pass that along to your people and your clients. Cause, you know, that's the beauty of, you know, having these different life experiences and programs. You get to pick and choose all the things that you think are, you know, the best parts and incorporate it into your lifestyle, your practices, your business. And so, okay, you have a podcast. Let's talk a little bit about the podcast. What inspired you to create a podcast? And did you have any fear surrounding talking on a podcast?
All right. So it was really inspired by, well, one, your podcast. I loved your podcast. Probably listened to it since the beginning of 2020 is when I found it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but just like I love podcasts. I love being able to just put it in and do stuff, because I don't have to sit there and watch something. So that kind of was the inspiration for it. And I always have felt like I have more to say, but me sitting there on my Instagram stories talking for 20 minutes isn't gonna work.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it came from. And I still have so much fear. It's gotten better, but the first episode was kind of just like, okay, let's do this. And it's probably awful. And I told you before we started recording, like, I swear there's probably 20 or 21 episodes out and none of them are great, but I'm just putting in the reps and getting better as we go.
That is so admirable and so respectable for you to just be like, you know what, I got to take this messy action. Can you shout out a few of maybe a few of your favorite episodes, or maybe if you have titles or just topics that you've touched on, a few things that you could give people an idea of what they will find when they check out your podcast, which is linked below?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, so my favorite episode right now is called Details Matter. It's a newest episode, and it's just talking about kind of what we talked about in this episode of how the little things showing up consistently do matter. So I have a little bit of fitness in there, a little bit of mindset. That's kind of my thing is mindset. And yeah, so that's the one that we're talking about. We're kind of talking about putting away your cart, because I absolutely hate when people don't do that.
I know. It is the most frustrating thing in the world, especially when the cart return is literally right there and they leave the cart 2 spaces over. I'm like, how lazy can you be?
Yes.
Return your cart, people.
Kind of
if you're listening, if you're watching on YouTube, return your cart. PSA.
Be a good human.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know if you remember, but when you guys signed up for this round of Evolve X, I mentioned that there would be 1 free ticket to the Evolve retreat based on somebody that was in that program. I actually decided to double that and do 2 free tickets. So I wanted to let you know that you are one of the winners for 1 of the tickets. So congratulations.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
Oh my gosh. That just made my whole freaking week.
Oh,
Thank
good.
you.
Yes. It's really speaks to your dedication, your consistency, your willingness to show up on good days and also on bad days, and just your part in the community as well. Cause I really feel that, even though that I feel, you know, sometimes I felt like you needed a little encouraging on the group coaching calls and stuff to like speak up. When you did, it was so valuable. And I know that wasn't always like the easiest thing for you to do. So I just want you to know you are such a valuable part of our community, and we have just absolutely loved having you. So thank you. And we can't wait to see you in person.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. I cannot wait to meet you guys in person.
I know. It's actually crazy to think that we haven't met in person before, because I feel like we all get so used to normal to our clients that I forget, like, wow, we haven't actually hugged these people in person yet. So it's going to be pretty cool. Well, I will keep you guys updated on that. But I want to say thank you so much for being on today's episode of Evolve with Emily. I've just really enjoyed speaking with you. And I feel like this has been such a jam-packed episode full of tools that everybody, no matter where they're at, no matter if they ever, you know, go on their own Evolve X journey or not, they can gain a lot just from what you shared. So thank you for being willing to share your experience.
No, thank you so much for having me. This is so fun. I enjoyed it.
I'm so glad. All right, guys. Well, do me a favor. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do us a favor and tag us both on your Instagrams, tag us on your stories. Make sure to check out Beckie's podcast, and all of her links will be down below in the show notes or the description box on YouTube. And I will see you for another episode of Evolve with Emily. Bye, guys.